Three men approach elderly couple in gas station. Unaware cop is watching them. Three young men approached an elderly couple at a gas station, unaware that a police officer was watching. What happened next took everyone by surprise and left millions speechless. The gas station stood at the edge of town, bathed in the golden hues of a dying sun. The air was thick with the scent of gasoline, mingling with the crisp aroma of fresh asphalt. The distant hum of engines filling the space between the occasional burst of laughter and the rhythmic beeping of the pumps. It was a place of movement. People coming, going, never staying long enough to notice the stories unfolding around them. Jacques, Costo, and Marty, three young men in their early 20s, weren't supposed to be here. They were on their way to something more exciting, something that involved loud music, late-night adventures, and memories they'd only half remember in the morning. They had stopped for nothing more than a quick snack, a bag of chips, a bottle of soda, maybe a few jokes thrown around like loose change. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Marty leaned against the car, tapping his fingers idly on the hood. "Dude, we should have taken the other exit. This place is dead," he muttered, tossing a crumpled receipt into the wind. Jacques, ever the easygoing one, just grinned. "Relax, man. It's just a pit stop." Costo, the quiet observer of the trio, was already scanning the lot, his eyes locking onto something, or rather, someone, that made him pause mid-sip of his energy drink. Near an old, weathered sedan parked a few feet away, stood an elderly couple. The woman, frail and delicate like a forgotten porcelain doll, clung to the arm of a man who seemed as much a part of the past as she did. Her thin frame trembled with the effort of standing, her legs unsteady beneath her. The man, David Grist, his name unknown to them yet, held on to her with a quiet determination, his once powerful hands now aged and veined, but still steady as he adjusted her coat and whispered something only she could hear. They looked out of place, almost as if they had stepped through a crack in time. No one else noticed them. The cars sped by, the cashiers continued their routine, and the world moved on without a second glance. But Costo nudged Jacques and nodded toward them. "Look at that," he murmured. And just like that, the mood shifted. Meanwhile, Officer Kenesha Carnegie sat in her cruiser, parked at the far end of the lot, sipping lukewarm coffee and half-heartedly scrolling through her phone. She wasn't supposed to be here either. A routine patrol brought her through town, and a nagging sense of unease made her pull into the station for a quick break. She had seen enough in her career to know when something was about to happen. The tension in the air was subtle, but it was there, something waiting just beneath the surface. Her eyes landed on the elderly couple first. A soft sigh escaped her lips. She'd seen it too many times. People struggling, unnoticed, ignored. But before she could even consider stepping out of the car, she noticed the three young men moving toward them. Her grip tightened on her coffee cup. Instinct kicked in. She didn't trust easily. Jacques was the first to move, his steps slow and deliberate, his playful grin replaced with something else, something that felt like purpose. "Hey, sir, you need a hand?" he asked, his voice hesitant but genuine. Marty and Costo flanked him, unsure but willing. David Grist looked up, his tired blue eyes meeting Jacques'. For a second, he said nothing. Then, with a small nod, he shifted his grip on his wife's arm. "If you don't mind, son," he said, his voice thick with age and gratitude. Rose Grist's fingers trembled as Jacques gently guided her toward the car. Every movement slow, careful, almost reverent. Costo moved to steady David, his firm grip offering support the older man hadn't realized he needed. Marty opened the car door, adjusting the seatbelt like he'd done it 1,000 times before. From her cruiser, Officer Carnegie watched, her phone now forgotten in her lap. A part of her wanted to step in, to say something, but something else held her back. Instead, she reached for her phone's camera, pressing record. Some moments deserved to be remembered. The scene unfolding before her was unexpected, raw, and strangely beautiful. The world hadn't stopped, and most people at the gas station were still too preoccupied to notice. But in that small, fleeting moment, something extraordinary was happening. A connection across generations, a quiet act of kindness in a place where no one was looking. And little did any of them know, This small act would soon ripple across the world in ways none of them could have imagined. The weight of the years hung heavily on David and Rose Grist, silent, yet ever-present. They had lived through times of war and peace, raising children who had long since moved away in pursuit of their own lives. In their younger days, they had been strong, resilient, and full of purpose. David, a former lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, had once marched through battlefields with unwavering determination, while Rose had been the steadfast heart of their family, holding everything together through the toughest of times. But now, the battlefield had shifted. No longer fighting wars, they found themselves in a relentless struggle against time and frailty. Their journey to the gas station that evening was not just another routine errand. It was a testament to their unwavering independence. Rose, once vibrant and lively, now struggled with every step she took, her body betraying her with each passing day. David, despite his age, insisted on driving. The thought of losing control over their daily lives was far more terrifying to him than the actual dangers of the road. They had refused the offers of their children to arrange for caretakers or assisted living. To them, asking for help meant admitting defeat, and they had never been ones to surrender easily. Yet, beneath the stubborn facade, there was a growing fear they wouldn't admit to each other. Every journey they took felt riskier, every mile an added weight on David's already shaky hands. Rose clutched his arm tighter these days, her eyes darting nervously at the slightest movement. But still, they pressed on, determined to hold on to whatever independence they had left. The gas station, bustling with hurried travelers and distracted commuters, was indifferent to their struggle. People came and went, too busy with their own schedules to notice the elderly couple moving painfully slow, their efforts nearly invisible amid the blur of movement. A young man in a business suit hurried past them without so much as a glance, his mind on an important call. A mother with 2 children in tow struggled with groceries, her focus solely on keeping them in line. David knew this feeling all too well. The world no longer paused for them. They had become background characters in their own lives, existing but unnoticed. And then the unexpected happened. 3 young men, Jock, Costo, and Marty, stood by their car, chips and sodas in hand, their laughter light and carefree. It was a sound that belonged to youth, a stark contrast to the heavy silence David and Rose carried with them. Costo noticed first. He nudged Jock, his eyes fixed on Rose's frail frame. "Hey, you see that?" he murmured, his tone suddenly serious. Jock frowned, following his gaze. Marty, the practical one, was skeptical. "We shouldn't get involved, man. They probably got it handled," he said, though there was little conviction in his voice. Costo hesitated. What if they don't? There was the moment of hesitation that separated those who walked away from those who stepped in. A fleeting thought crossed their minds. Would they be seen as intrusive? Would the elderly couple reject their help? But some instincts run deeper than logic. Something about the way Rose leaned so heavily into David, the way he struggled to keep her steady, gnawed at them. A silent understanding passed between the 3 friends, and with a collective nod, they made their decision. They moved toward the couple, leaving behind the safety of their snacks and weekend plans, stepping into the unknown with nothing more than good intentions. Kenesha Carnegie had been in law enforcement long enough to see humanity at its worst. She had responded to thefts, violence, and countless incidents of indifference. But tonight, something different caught her eye. Sitting in her patrol car, watching from a distance, she had seen the elderly couple first. At first, it seemed like just another moment of life's quiet struggles, a reminder of how easily people could become invisible. Then, she noticed the 3 young men watching them. Her instincts kicked in. Experience told her to stay alert. Not all interactions ended well. Her hand hovered over her radio, ready to intervene if needed. But something held her back. There was no aggression in their stance, no signs of mischief. Instead, there was something gentler, hesitation, concern. She watched as Jock stepped forward, his voice carrying just enough kindness to break through the walls of pride the elderly often built around themselves. She saw the way Costo carefully steadied David's walker, and the way Marty adjusted the car seat without being asked. Kanisha leaned back in her seat, a rare smile tugging at the corners of her lips. This was different. Her hand moved from the radio to her phone. She hesitated. Police officers rarely took the time to document good deeds. It wasn't part of the job, but something in her told her that people needed to see this, needed to be reminded that kindness still existed in the most unexpected places. She hit record. Through the lens of her phone, she captured not just a moment, but a testament to the power of simple compassion. A frail woman finding support, a war veteran being treated with dignity, and 3 young men stepping up without hesitation. Kanisha watched, feeling something stirred deep within her, a reminder of why she had chosen this job in the first place. To protect, yes, but also to witness the good. As the car door finally closed and Rose was safely seated, David looked at the young men with a mixture of gratitude and quiet pride. "You boys remind me of better days," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. Jock gave a sheepish smile, rubbing the back of his neck. "Just doing what anyone would, sir." But deep down, they all knew not everyone would. Officer Carnegie put her phone away, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over her. In a world where viral stories often highlighted chaos and division, perhaps this one would be different. And indeed, it was. Little did they know, the simple decision to help would soon reach millions, resonating across social media and sparking conversations in homes, offices, and schools. But for now, all that mattered was this moment. A fleeting, beautiful act of kindness in the middle of an otherwise ordinary night. The moment hung in the air like a delicate thread, fragile, fleeting, yet charged with an undeniable weight. Jock was the first to step forward, his usual carefree demeanor replaced with a quiet resolve. He reached out, his hand steady but gentle, as he grasped Rose's trembling arm. "Ma'am, let me help you," he said softly, his voice laced with a warmth that cut through the cool evening air. Rose looked up at him, her eyes clouded with age, but still carrying the sharpness of a woman who had seen the world change 1,000 times over. For a brief second, she hesitated. She was used to relying on David, used to doing things on her own. But something in Jock's face, something genuine, something kind, made her nod in silent agreement. With a careful grip, Jock supported her weight as she shuffled toward the car. Each step was slow, deliberate, and yet filled with an unspoken determination. Marty moved quickly, adjusting the passenger seat with practiced ease, making sure it was reclined just enough to offer comfort without making her feel helpless. Costo, meanwhile, turned his attention to David, whose knuckles were white against the handle of his walker. "Here, sir, let me hold this for you," Costo said, his voice calm but firm. He positioned himself beside the older man, allowing him to lean slightly against his sturdy frame. David chuckled, the sound a mixture of gratitude and weariness. "Been a long time since someone called me sir," he said, his voice shaky but touched with humor. Freddie G., standing nearby, placed a reassuring hand on David's shoulder. "You've earned it, sir," he said with a sincere smile. "Let's get you both settled, all right?" David swallowed hard, emotion thick in his throat. He wasn't used to this, being on the receiving end of kindness. His whole life had been about giving, providing, protecting, but tonight, for once, he allowed himself to accept it. As Rose finally settled into the passenger seat, she reached out, her frail fingers brushing against Jock's hand. Her touch was light, but carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. "You boys," she whispered, her voice trembling but filled with something deeper than gratitude. "You're proof that the world still has good people." Jock glanced at his friends, his eyes filled with something unspoken. Humility, perhaps. He wasn't used to being called good, not in a way that truly mattered. "We're just happy to help," he said, shrugging, but the lump in his throat betrayed his casual words. David, his eyes misty, reached out and gave Costo's arm a squeeze. "Back in my day," he murmured, "we always looked out for each other. But nowadays, it's easy to think no one cares anymore." He paused, swallowing thickly. "Guess I was wrong." Freddie G., ever the talker, knelt down to David's level and said with a soft smile, "Sir, some of us still care. You just gotta know where to look." Rose wiped away a single tear, her lips forming a faint, nostalgic smile. My mother always said kindness comes when you least expect it, but need it the most. The words hung in the air, heavy and light all at once. From a short distance away, Officer Kenesha Carnegie had been watching it all unfold. She had been in law enforcement long enough to know that moments like this didn't come often. In a world where she usually saw people at their worst, this simple act of humanity was something she wasn't about to let slip away unnoticed. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her uniform crisp under the glow of the station's flickering neon sign. The boys noticed her immediately, their expressions shifting from casual warmth to uncertainty. Jock cleared his throat, standing a little straighter. We're not in trouble, are we?" he asked, half joking but still cautious. Carnegie smiled, shaking her head. "Not at all," she said. "Actually, I was wondering, would you mind if I recorded this? People need to see things like this. They need to be reminded that kindness still exists." The boys exchanged glances, clearly caught off guard. Marty was the first to shrug. "I mean, if it helps someone, why not?" Costo rubbed the back of his neck, a sheepish smile spreading across his face. "We're not exactly used to the spotlight, though." Carnegie chuckled. "Don't worry. It's not about you. It's about what you did." With their hesitant nods, she lifted her phone and pressed record. The camera captured every detail. The way Jock knelt beside Rose with such gentleness. The way Costo supported David with an unwavering grip. The way Freddie G's encouraging words filled the air with comfort. It was a scene too pure to go unnoticed. As the recording continued, Carnegie found herself blinking away unexpected tears. She had seen a lot too much, in fact. But this was the kind of thing that made her believe in the goodness of people again. As the elderly couple finally settled in, David turned to the young men one last time. "Boys, you didn't have to do this. But you did, and I won't forget it." Jacques grinned. "Just doing what felt right, sir." Rose reached out once more, her fingers curling around Freddie G's hand. "You've got good hearts, all of you." And with that, David started the engine, the low rumble filling the quiet night. The old sedan pulled away slowly, disappearing down the road, but the warmth they left behind lingered. The boys watched them leave, a strange sense of fulfillment settling over them. They didn't expect thanks, they didn't expect recognition, but in that moment, they knew they had done something that truly mattered. As Officer Carnegie put away her phone, she looked at the boys with a newfound respect. "You guys take care of each other, all right?" she said, her voice steady but filled with admiration. Jock nodded. "Always." With that, she walked back to her cruiser, feeling lighter than she had in years. She had no idea how much this video would mean to the world or how far it would reach, but something told her it was worth sharing. As the boys piled back into their car, Marty sighed and leaned back in his seat. "Guess that snack run took longer than expected. Costo checked. Worth it, though." Freddie G grinned. "Yeah, definitely worth it." And with that, they drove off, not realizing that their small act of kindness was about to become something far bigger than they had ever imagined. What started as a quiet act of kindness in the dimly lit parking lot of a small-town gas station soon became something far greater than anyone could have imagined. Officer Carnegie's video, originally meant as a personal keepsake, a small reminder that goodness still existed, found its way onto social media. Within hours of posting it, the footage exploded across the internet, touching hearts in ways that words often failed to. The video captured it all. Jock's steady hands guiding Rose into the car, Costo's firm but gentle grip supporting David's frail frame, and the warm, reassuring smiles that seemed to say, "You're not alone." It wasn't long before the video made its way onto every major platform: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and even the evening news. The simplicity and purity of the act resonated across generations, transcending cultures and borders. Thousands of comments poured in almost instantly. Faith in humanity restored. These young men were raised right. Their parents must be so proud. Imagine if we all took a moment to help like this. In a world that often felt chaotic and divided, this brief moment of selfless kindness was a much-needed reminder that compassion still had a place. As the video's view count climbed into the millions, mainstream media took notice. Morning talk shows, radio stations, and online news outlets picked up the story, highlighting it as a beacon of hope in an otherwise tumultuous world. Journalists were eager to know more about the trio who had captured the hearts of millions. Calls started coming in, and soon, Jock, Costo, and Marty found themselves facing a reality they had never expected. Interviews, media appearances, and endless messages from strangers who simply wanted to thank them. "Honestly, we didn't think much of it at the time," Jock said in an interview, his usual confidence tinged with humility. "We just saw someone who needed help and did what anyone else would have done." But the world disagreed. Not everyone would have stopped, and that was what made their story special. Back home, their families were overwhelmed with pride. Parents beamed with joy, friends sent messages of admiration, and even distant relatives reconnected just to express how proud they were. Marty's mother, watching one of the news segments, wiped away a tear. He's always had a good heart, but to see the world recognize it, that's something else. Freddie G's little sister boasted to her classmates, "That's my big brother on TV." The trio, once just regular guys grabbing snacks at a gas station, were now being seen as role models. Proof that small actions could make a world of difference. The unexpected fame brought more than just praise. It brought opportunity. Local community organizations reached out, inviting them to speak at events focused on youth empowerment and kindness initiatives. Schools asked them to visit and share their story, encouraging students to be more compassionate in their daily lives. One nonprofit even offered to sponsor a campaign promoting random acts of kindness, featuring the trio as ambassadors of goodwill. Despite their newfound recognition, the boys remained grounded. "We're just regular guys," Costo insisted, smiling. "But if sharing our story inspires someone else to help out, then it's worth it." For David and Rose, life had taken an unexpected turn. Strangers began reaching out, offering assistance, sharing their own stories of kindness and simply wanting to connect. The elderly couple, once feeling invisible in a world too fast for them, were now receiving letters, small gifts, and heartfelt messages from people across the country. Their grandchildren, who had initially been worried about them traveling alone, now saw the event in a different light. "Knowing there are people out there willing to step in when we can't," their grandson said in a local interview, "it gives us a lot of comfort." Their once quiet days were now filled with reminders that they weren't alone. People in their town who had once been mere acquaintances now greeted them with warm smiles and offers of assistance whenever they saw them in public. David, with his usual quiet wisdom, simply smiled and said, "Sometimes, all it takes is one moment to remind you that the world is still good." Beyond the personal stories and viral fame, the true takeaway from that gas station encounter was a universal truth. Kindness is timeless, and it knows no boundaries. The video became a symbol of hope, reminding people that in a world filled with noise, a simple act of empathy could still cut through and touch hearts. It wasn't about grand gestures or viral fame. It was about recognizing a need, stepping up, and doing what was right without expectation of anything in return. Lessons from the story that resonated with millions. Kindness is priceless. It costs nothing to care, yet its impact is immeasurable. Every small act matters. A few seconds of helping someone can leave a lasting impact on their life. Respecting the elderly is a responsibility. They deserve patience, dignity, and compassion from the younger generation. We all have the power to make a difference. No act is too small to change someone's day, or even their life. As the days passed and the initial viral buzz faded, the impact of that moment remained. The gas station, once just another pit stop on an endless road, had become something more, a reminder that in the midst of our busy lives, there's always time for kindness. Officer Carnegie, still reflecting on what she had witnessed, summed it up perfectly in a later interview. "In my line of work, I see a lot of darkness, but that night I saw light, and it reminded me why I do what I do." The trio, now affectionately called the Good Guys online, went back to their normal lives. But they carried with them a deeper understanding of the ripple effect their actions had set in motion. Marty, scrolling through his phone one night, stumbled upon a comment that read, "I helped an elderly couple today because of your story. Thank you for reminding me that kindness still matters. He smiled to himself, knowing that one moment at a gas station had sparked something far greater than any of them had expected. And that was the true power of kindness. It never really ends. As the dust settled and the viral buzz gradually faded, the essence of that moment remained, etched not just in digital archives, but in the hearts of those who had witnessed it, both in person and through their screens. For many, it was just another feel-good story in an endless stream of fleeting internet trends. But for those involved, Jock, Costo, Marty, David, Rose, and Officer Carnegie, it was so much more. It was a reminder of the profound impact that simple, human kindness could have on the world. The story of the three young men stepping in to help an elderly couple wasn't about heroism or seeking recognition. It was about something far more fundamental: the power of empathy in an increasingly indifferent world. It served as a poignant reminder that kindness doesn't require grand gestures. It flourishes in the small, everyday moments, holding a door open, offering a hand, or simply acknowledging someone's struggle. The world, often seen as harsh and unfeeling, suddenly felt a little warmer, a little more connected, all because of one moment at a gas station. The story reinforced timeless lessons. Kindness knows no age. It bridges the generational gap, reminding us that we are all walking the same path at different paces. A small act can have a ripple effect. One moment of compassion can inspire countless others, creating waves of goodwill far beyond what anyone can foresee. Opportunities to help are everywhere. In the midst of our busy lives, we must be willing to slow down and notice those around us who may need a hand. In an era where technology often isolates rather than connects, this story reminded people of the beauty of human interaction. David and Rose, a couple who had lived through decades of history and change, found solace in the kindness of three young men who belonged to a generation so different from their own. Yet in that fleeting moment, age and experience didn't matter. Only the simple, universal need for support and connection. It showed the world that despite differences in upbringing, beliefs, and experiences, one thing remained constant: our shared humanity. As Officer Kenesha Carnegie reflected on that evening, she couldn't shake the feeling that something truly special had unfolded before her eyes. In a world where her job so often exposed her to conflict and division, witnessing such a genuine act of kindness was a rare gift. She later shared her thoughts in an interview, her words resonating with thousands. "I've seen a lot of my years on the force. Some things I wish I could forget. But that night, that was different. I saw kindness in its purest form. No cameras, no expectations, just people helping people. It reminded me that the best things in life happen in the most unexpected places." For Carnegie, it was more than just a video. It was a reaffirmation of why she chose her profession, not just to enforce the law, but to protect and preserve moments of goodness. The story's virality may have been temporary, but its impact was lasting. Strangers started checking in on their elderly neighbors. Parents shared the video with their children as a lesson in empathy. Even businesses reached out, offering support for senior citizens in their communities. Jock, Costo, and Marty didn't set out to inspire the world that day. They were just three friends making a pit stop. But their simple decision to step up in a moment of need sent an unintentional but powerful message. Kindness isn't rare. It's just often unnoticed. The gas station, a place most people pass through without a second thought, had become the setting of an extraordinary reminder. Life's most beautiful moments often happen when we least expect them. And perhaps, in that realization, lies the greatest lesson of all. We don't have to look far to make a difference. Sometimes, all it takes is being present, being aware, and being willing to act. The story of Jock, Costo, and Marty stepping in to help David and Rose is a powerful reminder that kindness, in its simplest form, has the ability to bridge generations, break down barriers, and restore faith in humanity. It teaches us that small, selfless actions, offered without expectation, can create ripples far beyond what we can imagine. In a world that often feels rushed and disconnected, Taking a moment to acknowledge the struggles of others and lend a helping hand can make all the difference. This moment at a gas station serves as a testament to the fact that compassion is not a grand gesture. It's a choice we make every day in the smallest of ways. It encourages us to slow down, to notice, and to act. Because sometimes the greatest impact comes from the moments that seem the most ordinary.